My name is Jeannie Tyrell, and you are listening to Brain Drops. The Brain Drops podcast will provide every listener information about the Brain Drops Foundation. Today I'm speaking with our foundation team member, Nate Mercier. He is an NASM certified personal trainer, and he is CPR and AED certified. He aspires to help people change their health. Nate advocates self-care with goal setting and long-term plans to help change a person's lifestyle. Here we go. Cool. So intro. Nate's amazing. Nate is a cool dude. And we are discussing diffusing the politics and respecting everyone's opinions and just an overall look on what's to come when it comes to family turmoil and how it all correlates to our mental health. Take it away, Nate.
So one of the first things that I think is very important to discuss these days is mental health within the family, between COVID, between the politics of the world, between just the anger of the job force right now, of just people getting frustrated, overworked, exhausted. I think it's important first and foremost to do self-care, always, 110%. There are many ways to do this. So there's meditation, of course, and some people it's really hard to do that because it's hard to just shut your brain off, and I get it. And the good news is there's many forms of meditation, whether that's listening to music, whether that's relaxing and breathing and being in your own bubble on your own time. Therapy is really good as well. I see a spiritual therapist, so someone who kind of deals with like energy, Reiki, crystals, things like that. Other types of therapists that work for people are people that you can sit down and talk to with a degree or a license, which is understandable, and that works for other people.
Yeah,
so we're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
We're in a pandemic, right? So
and there's parts of us that don't believe in the pandemic, which also makes it stressful. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's why I'm thinking like families, like I'm thinking in terms of family, or if you have kids or loved ones, friends, maybe you live with friends who need help. Picturing a kid having to wear a mask, having to live life during this crisis when they're just a kid. We have to think of it on an empathetic perspective that, first of all, that kid's probably terrified of having to wear that mask and having to follow all these rules and not being able to go to his friend's house, asking, why can't I go to my friend's house? Why can't I go outside? Why can't I play? And a lot of families are very more lax. They let their kid go outside and play and have fun, but other families may be a little more restrictive. And one thing we have to understand is that everyone kind of deals with their family crises differently and the pandemic differently. And one of the things that we should all learn is not to ever judge. And that goes all across all boards of discussing like politics with your family, of who voted for who, and just getting mad at each other, when we should all understand that this is difficult for all of us in different ways. And throwing fuel to the fire does not help in any situation. And sometimes you just have to let things go.
Yeah, it's very important and very needed right now, especially you mentioning the empathetic perspective.
It's very much just me working as an essential worker for a long time, managing a grocery store, and also currently just doing the whole office environment now. Even in an office, compared to how stressful a grocery store is with all those people around you and a lot of people being frustrated and angry. A lot of the time it's not you, it's them. So in a public workplace or a public setting where there's lots of customers all day long and they're getting upset at you or they're giving sass, we have to take a moment and realize, hey, they probably have a bad day going on. They have their own demons that they're tackling right now during this pandemic. They could have lost someone in their life recently. And taking like 5 seconds to breathe, look around you, recognize something that's familiar to you, cling on to that to let you relax and calm down, that you can get through this moment and the moment after that. Sometimes you just have to let that go and understand that it's a bad day that they're having. Sometimes it's a bad week, but you just have to remember that
we're all in this together. But do you feel like on some level it should be the responsibility of whatever company is expecting you to push product? At the same time, like I feel like the company needs to acknowledge what's going on and kind of instill what you're saying into the employees, because not everybody has the same mindset as us, where we kind of take this time and we've come to recognize it. I feel like there has to be an even bigger shift, and it has to go to the people in control of the companies too. And it can't just be us always being the better person. The companies want product. They want product. They want you to be pushing the product. And I don't feel like companies, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they've shifted as we are expected to shift as essential workers.
Yeah. And I can answer partially to that just because I've had a couple different jobs during this pandemic now that I've kind of switched between. So what I've learned from a boss's perspective of running a business during this time is for their mental health, a CEO or head honcho or something is that they are happy making more money. They're happy that they can provide for their family. And a lot of people should remember that they also have their own families that they have to feed. Running a business, yeah, it can be unfair that people have a lower position and are getting paid lower. But a lot of the time, the business owners, like they have to do what they're told through another higher power that you probably don't know about or I probably don't know about. And they kind of have to listen and follow direction from someone else, then give us direction. And that can be very stressful. So for me, I've noticed during this pandemic, training, first of all, training employees has been significantly, completely kind of cut in half. I suppose it's been kind of more of a journey, a tougher challenge because it's a pandemic. So a lot of people these days getting jobs, from what I've understood and getting others' opinions, including my own experience, is that they're forced to learn quickly because it's busy everywhere. Everybody is shorthanded because a lot of people are on unemployment or a lot of people are sick with this disease. And unfortunately, that forces a lot of us to work twice as hard. So we have to understand that we can only do what we can, the best we can. And if a lot of us are scared that we'll get fired or terminated for not doing enough, we also have to remember that the boss probably needs us, or the owner of the business probably needs us more than we think. And by just doing our best, that should be enough.
Yeah. Honestly, it has to be enough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think one of the big things that we also have to remember is that there are a lot of people on unemployment who don't have the emotional capacity to have a job right now, because this is a lot. Like, I'm not joking, everyone. It's a lot to put on yourself to try and expect to have a job during this craziness. It's a lot to put on yourself to try to live without anxiety when all of this is going on. And there's a lot of people with differing opinions, whether it be the election, lifestyles, sexual orientation, or ethnicity or racial problems. Everyone has a lot of these toxic things in their minds and differences that we can't control. We have to remember we can only control ourselves. So there's a lot of people unemployed right now that could still use a lot of support, like people in the LGBTQIA+ community. One of the big things we can do is be an ear for them and listening to them, even though, someone might not agree with everything they're saying, or someone might feel like, it's a privileged situation where, they feel like they shouldn't have to cater to another person for a disability or a need. We have to erase that from our minds and remember we're all living on the same planet and breathing the same air, and we all need help, whether it's being unemployed or not. We need to be there for each other because this pandemic is hard for people for different reasons.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that right now I've awoken to seeing a lot of individuals that it's like they're only focused on their chair and they don't see the whole table. And it's kind of like my religious views, my perspective, my family, my business, this kind of weird state, which I understand is probably protective because of our situation, but we can't let it continue. So that's why I am eager to speak with you and eager to hear your methods, the way that you kind of self-care. So that way we can help others who don't have the ability or haven't had the journey. Your journey took you to where you are, correct? But there are other people that haven't gone down those roads and haven't looked into self-care and mental health, and we have to kind of speak to those people.
That's right. One of the biggest things that I can say is, in order to find that self-care, in order to find that happiness when you don't have a moment of stress or anxiety, is first finding more time for yourself any way you can to have more time to find a way to do self-care and to find a way to calm down and relax. If you're so booked up in your life where you have not even a second to relax, that's when you should immediately know you have to change something, because that's going to eat you alive. It's going to not feed your soul, and it's going to cause health issues in the end, even stress issues, stress related.
Would you care to share like any example you might have had before you got your certification and kind of took in your journey? Like, do you have any examples of where you were mentally 100% booked and weren't taking care of yourself in that regard?
Absolutely. So before I became a certified personal trainer, I used to be about 300 pounds. I wasn't going anywhere with my life. I would constantly lock myself in my room and play video games, or I would eat food or watch movies, and that's all I would do, because I was bullied all the time growing up in school. And I didn't have a great at-home life either. It was very abusive. So I didn't really have a lot of leeway or room to find self-care for myself, because I didn't think that I deserved it or I could. Mm-hmm. And then one thing that helped me through it the most was a wake-up call where I forced myself to have a conversation with my dad, because I was living with him during all this craziness most of the time. I told him that I was having a hard time at school and that, I really didn't know how to change my life around. I asked him to get a gym membership for me and start there. He ended up getting me a gym membership. He got a treadmill and started working out with me in the house as well. He had health issues. So he had PTSD from being a Vietnam War veteran, and he also smoked a lot. So, when he died when I was about 18 years old. He died like only 2 weeks after we started changing my life around, and he started changing his life around, which was unfair. But It did give me a wake-up call, big time. And that helped me force myself, after he passed away, to go to the gym and work out and do him justice and myself justice by not giving up and keep doing that and losing the weight. And in turn, that's when I started helping other people lose the weight. And that's when I really felt like I was going down a good path on what my career, my calling was, because I know how hard it is to feel like you're alone or trapped or have no time for yourself, no time to grow, because you feel like you're a nuisance or you're lost in your own mind. And I really like helping other people getting out of that. But the first step to do that for anyone trying to get any advice here is you have to ask for help, and you have to let other people help you. Because if you're going to stay in it alone, it's going to be very difficult to get through it, especially during a pandemic. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help. As someone who's struggled a lot with their own problems, I also understand there's always going to be that voice that says, don't ask for help, they won't care. Or, you won't be worthy of that person's attention. You have to erase that, because if that stays in your head, that is a negative thought trying to stop you from helping yourself. And that is the one trap that is the easiest to fall into. Sometimes you have to take a dive and you have to take a risk in order to find a better result. So whether that risk is going to a grief group or a counseling group with other people and people like-minded or your age, or, if that risk is going out to a social gathering or being part of a local community club where you can connect with others. There are so many support systems out there that doesn't involve having to talk to your parents or your family if you don't feel like you are connected with them on a certain issue, or even your friends if you don't feel like your friends have time, or if you don't feel like they'd understand. There's so many resources such as Facebook groups. There is community centers and resource centers in your local town or city that you can go to, and they can connect you with people for help with mental self-care issues or issues with physical problems. There's a lot of options, and I think we just have to understand that our help doesn't always have to come immediately in our circle. It can involve going out of the circle as well.
Yeah. Like, for example, you mentioned the translifesonoma and positive images. Like, how did you find your way to those groups?
I had a really good friend of mine who used to be a coworker of mine. She was volunteering for these organizations, and she dragged me out one day and said, "Hey, do you want to volunteer with me? It's really good for your soul. It's really positive. It's a good feeling to do these things." And I said, sure. So I helped organize a march for LGBTQIA plus rights, and I helped involve myself in setting up tents and booths for these companies to get the word out about helping people in this community. And then I would see all these people come to the booths and all these people coming to our events, and how happy they were to know that they felt safe and connected and protected with like-minded people. And I think it's so important to get yourself out there and understand that you aren't alone, even though your mind tells you you are. You could feel alone, but you're not. You just have to find a way to remind yourself that there are other people like you who also want to be someone that can make friends or someone that can have someone to talk to.
Just the community is out there, but a lot of people, they get so clouded with content that you see on Netflix. It's kind of overshadowing these groups. I know they do their best to promote what they're doing, but I'm sorry, Kim Kardashian gets all the attention. I have to say it. But it's,
right.
It's up to the people on the ground to use their voice and talk about it and kind of almost force this community, because it is overshadowed by another type of content. Correct?
Absolutely. And I just want to touch on the point one more time, that by adding fuel to the fire of someone whose mindset is never going to change, who's hell-bent on going against these rights that we all need, and in order for us to have better mental health and to survive in the world out there, having our rights being, argued about, having our rights being criticized, those people are never going to have their minds changed. We have to feed ourselves and walk forward in a positive direction, because if we feed their fire, they only get stronger. And I think we have to remember the best way to fight that is to unite with others and find a better way to bring out a bigger, more positive message that goes against theirs from afar, whether that be an event or whether that be a local community post or video or something, promoting love and peace over people that are hateful or argue or try to get you to change your mind. You can't feed that, because they will not stop trying, and neither will you in your own way.
Yeah. So I just take this second to give a shout out to a small organization called Love and Light. I had a similar journey that you've been describing. I've been trying to find that community. I've been trying to find these groups and find my own outlet. And that group specifically, like We Marched, they say, together united we'll never be divided. And I really take that seriously. They are a very positive group, and I do my part. I try and share what they've got going on, and I'm happy to share whatever you've got going on, and we will work our way around the Kardashians and the Netflix and that whole gig. That's what we are going to do. Okay?
That's right. Applaud to that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Until I take my dying breath, I feel like this is a passion for me.
And I think, honestly, Genia, by doing that, everyone feeding their soul and feeding what makes them happy instead of what makes them angry, it's only going to get bigger, and it's only going to become so big where it's going to become a bubble around you, and it's going to protect you from the hate the more you invest in what matters the most to you.
Yeah. Well, Nate, I'm so happy to speak with you today, and I'm glad you joined me, and I'm glad you joined the Braindrops Foundation. You're going to be an awesome team member. And our 1-year anniversary is in February, so I think our first beach cleanup is going to happen on that day to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, and to not only do the mental detoxification that I've described with this organization, but we're going to actually do some area cleanup.
I am so excited for that, and you bet I will be there.
Okay, it'll be in February, and I'm going to be posting, all this stuff on Instagram whenever I get around to it, but meh.
Hey, don't you worry. I'll be sharing too. We'll get the word out together.
Cool. All right. Thank you for listening to the Braindrops podcast. Stay tuned for updates on our foundation, our guest speakers, and some interesting braindrops.